This episode of RSR is brought to you by iZotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, and Grace Design. These are tools that I use every day in my studio, from the Spectra 1964, STX 600, 100, and 100D, and Native Instruments Complete 26, to iZotope Ozone and RX, and the central hub for my studio, the Grace Design M701 audio interface. Follow the sponsor links in the show notes. Grab my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com, and remember to like this video and subscribe on YouTube because it's a great way to help support this show. Now, get ready to rock.
You throw up a mic in that room, and I wasn't a huge believer because I didn't have a lot of experience in recording. It was hard for me to go, well, you can do everything now in the box. It's like, let's just, what's wrong with that little room? We record drums in there and we make them sound killer in the box, or whatever. And it wasn't until we actually built that room and the first time I heard drums in there, it was like, wow, yeah, there is something to be said for playing drums in a big room with high ceilings. You can't fake that, even with as good as plugins are getting.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26 with powerful instruments, synthesizers, and creative tools to help you make music faster and stay inspired. The legendary Absynth 6 is back with evolving textures and experimental sounds, while Contact 8 gives you the tools for chords, phrases, and arrangement right inside your workflow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, and premium tools from iZotope and Brainworks, Complete 26 gives you everything you need to create in any genre. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw. Welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Toby Suess, founder and engineer at Tinroof Recording in Northern Nevada. Toby started Tinroof in 2017 as a small rehearsal studio and a demo space, but over the years expanded it into a full-service hybrid studio, doubling the footprint, acquiring the entire building, and in 2021, constructing a brand new high-ceiling tracking room with dedicated ISO booths. Today, Tinroof is home to one of the best drum rooms in the region, combining premium analog front-end gear with the flexibility of modern digital recording. A lifelong drummer, Toby fell deeply into engineering almost 10 years ago, soaking up every book, course, and podcast, as he says, that he could find while learning the real craft hands-on in his own studio. What started as a passion project has grown into a creative home where bands can track together, collaborate freely, and capture great performances in a comfortable, musician-friendly environment. So very excited to have Toby Suess joining us to Recording Studio Rockstars. Please welcome Toby. Toby, are you ready to rock, man?
I am. Let's do it.
Dude, it's great to have you here, man. It was nice to meet you. We just sort of connected this year. You had reached out to me because you were, I think you were a fan of the show, but you also, we've had a little bit of some similar studio path stories that maybe you want to talk about too.
Yeah. Trying to kind of remember, the way we got hooked up was, I finally bought one of your courses.
Cool. Thanks, man. Which one you got, the mixing class, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to you for like the entire 10 years that when I first started engineering, I've been listening to you. I feel like I learned most of what I know from this podcast, but, and all the books, of course. But, I had, you had put them on sale or something, and I had kind of been wanting to buy one of them, but I'd been burned before. Some of them that I bought were like really elementary beginner stuff. And, I kind of felt like it was a waste of time, but, I think it was the first or second interview you did with Craig Alvin, your friend Craig.
Yeah.
And I just really liked the interview and the stuff he was saying about mixing, and it just made sense to me.
Yeah.
And so then I sent you an email, and you surprisingly got right back to me and said, yeah, if you buy that course, it is all the stuff we discussed in that episode. And I was like, perfect. If that's the stuff that you guys were discussing in the episode, if that's what's on the course, I'll play. I'll buy it. So I bought it, and then like the next day or something, you messaged me on Instagram, which I just recently started doing. I'm horrible with social media and all this stuff. And I just just got a web page about a year ago. And I kind of ignored it at first. I thought it was like one of these automated, because you're so good at marketing and all that. I figured it was one of these automatic messages. Hey, thanks for purchasing my course or whatever, you know? But I listened to it, and it was like, hey, Toby, this is Lidge. And you had mentioned some stuff about visiting my website and my Instagram page, and that you like the look of the studio and stuff. And I was like, well, this isn't just an automated thing that everybody gets. This is actually Lidge.
Yeah, I was literally checking out your studio, man. You got a great website for sure, but it's really striking, you know, it really looks like a beautiful space to record. So it was cool to hear, you know, I'll just get introduced to your what you're up to there.
Yeah, thanks. My son took all the pictures and did all the lighting and stuff, so I have to give him credit for making the website look so good. Otherwise, it's just a square space that I did myself. I had a little bit of help from a friend of mine, and kind of got me started, and I just took it from there. But
now, Rockstars, for clarity's sake, I think he's talking about Squarespace, the website builder, not that his studio is a square space.
No, well,
although
there's
you
definitely
might have some square rooms
in here.
Yeah,
yeah. The new live room definitely is not square, but that was the only room that we got to build, you know, from scratch.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the rooms were here.
We'll dive into the studio and really get into the whole description of it. But before we get there, you know, I gave a brief intro to who you are, but tell us in your own words, you know, give us the brief story arc of getting interested in music, playing as a drummer, and then just sort of like discovering the recording side. And now all of a sudden you've got this gorgeous space, and, you know, you've upgraded and made ISO rooms and have like a dedicated tracking room. And you basically, and to hear your records too, Rockstars, we have a playlist of Toby's work in the show notes, so you can scroll down and listen. I mean, it's great sounding stuff, man. There's like a clarity to the way you record too. It's really easy to sort of pick out the instruments and really get a feel for how the song goes together and the arrangement.
Great, thanks. I appreciate that. I started playing drums. My dad was a drummer. And even though I only got to see him actually play the drum, he's passed quite a few years back. But even when I was growing up with him and stuff, I always knew he was a drummer. He talked about being a drummer. He gave me a snare drum, his snare drum, which I wish I still had. One of those stupid kid mistakes, you know, I let a friend borrow it and I never saw it again.
Oh, no.
I'm pretty sure it was an
Great
original.
Friend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, it was like he gave it to his little brother, and then when I asked for it back, he didn't know where it was or something. And
and you guys didn't even know how valuable a snare drum was at that point.
As a matter of fact, I'm almost positive it was a red maple Ludwig, maple shell. I think it had, you know, standard maple shell with like a red wrap. But yeah, it would have been a really cool snare drum to still have. And I've got a bunch of snare drums in my collection now, but that's the one I wished I had still.
The one that got away.
Yeah. And we all have stories about all those instruments that we sold because we thought it was a good idea at that time, or lost or whatever. And now we are kicking ourselves. But so was just always a drummer because of him. And he gave me that snare drum when I was probably, I've got pictures of me hitting drums, you know, like on his lap and stuff on a drum set in diapers. And then, you know, just sort of took the typical trajectory from there. I joined the school band, you know, when I was in 5th grade. And
this is growing up in Nevada, in the same place where you are now?
This is growing, I grew up in North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
the
played in the pep. Yeah. Yep. Played in the pep band and stuff there. And And then I remember, it was just snare drum and stuff. I went to a very tiny school, lived in a very tiny town, 500
Yeah.
people. And we got this new music teacher, and he was super cool. The gal we had before, she was great, but she was very traditional, old school. They got this guy that was a little bit younger, and he was like, "Why don't we have a drum set?" And they were like, "Well, nobody knows how to play one." And I actually had never sat on a drum set yet. I would do the pots and pans, and I'd set things up, like I thought I could play them. I was like, man, if I ever got behind a real kit, I might know what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
And he bought the school a drum set, and I sat behind it, and I could play it. And then I just took off from there, and I just kept playing, and I kept playing. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, my family moved here to Nevada, and I just kept drumming with local bands, joined local bands, and did that, gigging around Reno, and figured out that was a really quick way to get poor. But
faster
enjoyed
than gambling.
Yeah. but I loved it, and I've always had drums set up. I've always had a kit in my house. I won't lie, there's probably been times where a year may have gone by that I didn't even sit on the kit, depending on what I was doing in my life at that time. But I've always tried to stick with them, yeah. But like it said in my bio, in the bio I sent you, probably this has been the longest I haven't drummed, is probably, the last 10 months or so. I
You've
joke
just been
with my
so
friends.
Focused on recording and producing and all that, doing the studio stuff.
Yeah, I tell my friends I've only got enough.
It's a balancing act.
It is. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old, but I only have enough CPU to be good at one thing at one time right now. So
yeah,
I've chosen recording the last 10 years to really focus on it. And I still feel like I've just scratched the surface. There's so much to learn. It never, ever, ever ends, and it's constantly changing.
Did you pick up in Craig Alvin's interviews? I think he used a drummer as a background too. So he used to, I can't remember if we talked about that on the podcast, but I do know that, he has talked extensively to me about getting ready for a session and sitting down at the drum kit himself to dial in all the sounds and make sure everything sounds great before a drummer actually sits down for the session. And I really took that to heart. So I'm like trying to learn more about that. I'd be really curious whether you've just naturally adopted that as a way to get the drums ready for a session.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do it myself. I do have the, I'm in Studio One, is the DAW that I use. And so I use the remote app on my iPad, which I can take out into the live room and sit it down next to me, and I can hit record and play something and come back in. I still have to come back in here to adjust preamps and stuff like that, but I can do it myself. I get it as close as I can by myself, and then I've got friends. I'll ask a friend to come in and just bang on them for me before a session and make sure that I'm kind of ready to go when the band actually gets here, though. Yeah. But definitely take pride in my drum recording. I make sure stuff's tuned. I take a lot of time, all obviously before the band gets here, unless they want something really different, then, I'm ready for that. But they always say how nice the drums sound when they're in the control room. And the first thing I say is, well, first of all, they're tuned. I'm always amazed how many drummers could care less about tuning their drums.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's going to be one of my questions for sure. I'd love to talk to you more about that. But let's keep going a little bit on your studio stories. So you were playing drums, and then you just sort of got interested in the recording at some stage?
When we moved back, well, my family has always kind of had one foot in Nevada, one foot in North Dakota. So when I met my wife here, when we had kids and they were still real small, we moved back to North Dakota from Nevada and kind of raised our kids out there and put them through school. And then we decided to move back here, and we moved back, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And as soon as I got back, the first thing I did, of course, was I started looking for a place to play my drums. I didn't really want to do them in my home. I wanted a dedicated place to practice. And then, of course, the other thing I did right away was started looking up old friends, musicians, people I jammed with, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I found this space. I was literally driving around this town looking for like an abandoned building that looked like somebody might be willing to rent or something. And I ran onto this place, and there's two office buildings like storefront buildings, connected to a big giant. It's an 80 by 40 metal building that I'm connected to. So if you walk out the back doors of my studio, you actually walk into this giant shop.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so that's where I built the live room. It's a room inside of a room. So I built it in that shop from scratch with 2x6 construction.
That's gonna be cool to hear about.
Yeah. So, I called the guy. There was a number, and it's on the exact same property as a storage facility, like mini storage units. And so I called the number for the storage facility and I said, "Do you own that building that's on your property?" And he said, "Yeah." And I asked him about these two little kind of storefront buildings connected on the front. He said, "Yeah, they're empty." And I said, "Would you be willing to rent one of them?" And he said, "Well, I think, especially when I first said I wanted him for drums, I think his first thought was, oh man, this is some kid. He's going to bring a band in there. This isn't going to be good,
Yeah.
But as he got to know me, I called him a couple times. I kind of nagged him a little bit, and then I think he was like, okay, this guy's an adult, and
Yeah.
And so he met me down here and I looked at the room and it had a bathroom. And I didn't have any money, I was like, I don't have a whole lot of extra money for rent or anything. And I said, what would you charge me? And he said, $150 a month.
Wow, man.
And I said, I think I can swing that. So I did that, and he was super cool about, like, he let me paint it. I started making, if you can see kind of behind me, there's some sound panels, just the 2x4 sound panels that you can buy. Yeah. I just started making those because I've seen the ones that you buy, and it's like, those are super easy to make. So I started making those and, doing some sound treatment in that room for my drums. And it was initially just going to be a place for me to come rehearse my drums. And then maybe, I put a PA system in there just in case like some guys wanted to get together and just jam. I was definitely not into gigging anymore or anything like that. Just still wanted to play music though.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started. And the first friend I contacted, he was in the process of moving and he had a studio in Reno. And he asked me how secure my place was. And I said, it's secure. I've got alarms on it. And, I sleep fine at night. I got a lot of, drums in there and stuff, and I don't worry about it. And he said, well, I'm moving. Do you mind if I bring some of my gear out there to store while I'm moving into my new house? I said, sure. So he came out, and when he walked in, he was like, hey, you've kind of got the startings of like, this could be a good little room to record in, And I was like, I don't know, and he was kind of having a falling out at his studio in Reno. And he said, let's try to do something here. And so I called the owner. He let us build another little wall. We made like a little DIY control room. We bought this old Tascam board. And my friend, he had a publishing deal with MTV's Ridiculousness. I'm sure you're aware of that show that's on like 24/7 on MTV.
I'm embarrassed to say that I don't even think I've seen MTV since for a while, but that's cool though. So it's still running, and they've got like shows that's like The Real World was a constant show, so Ridiculousness is
right.
Is
they play it. I mean, I don't know that much about MTV anymore either, but you know how they've got like 3 different MTVs. There's like MTV Classic and whatever, but yeah, it's the one that they don't actually play music videos on anymore, just shows. Right. And it's been on there forever, and it's kind of like America's Funniest Videos. It's just all these videos of people just doing stupid stuff and, falling on their skateboards and all that. But in the background, of course, there's music that they need to, purchase. It's all sync license stuff.
Yeah.
And he kind of had a deal for that, but he was having to like pay a drummer, and then he would play the guitar and the bass, but then it was like he'd have to pay somebody to record it. He was like, what if we just kind of set this little studio up and I bring you in on that publishing deal, and we just sort of cut out all the middlemen and we'll do it here, And so we did that. We did a grip of 10 songs, and I played the drums on them. He did the guitar and bass. There's no vocals. And then we mixed it and mastered it ourselves, kind of not really knowing what the hell we were doing. But it was good enough to pass for the sync license. The publisher bought the grip of songs that we sent him, and I get a little mailbox money every 3 months.
The new iZotope RX12 is here, bringing powerful new AI tools to help you repair and improve your audio faster than ever. RX12 introduces scene rebalance for separating dialogue, music, and sound effects, plus stems view for visually editing stems inside your session. You can clean up noisy recordings, remove bleed, rebalance mixes, and automatically trim silence from long audio files in seconds. Whether you're producing music, editing podcasts, or working in post-production, RX12 helps you fix the unfixable fast. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Amazing, man. What a great story for starting a studio, too.
And I wished I knew how to do more of it, and we're no longer partners, just... like they say, if you want to stay friends, don't go into business with one of your friends. Because unfortunately, that's what happened. It was good for quite a few years, but we went our separate ways. And man, I wished I could figure out how to get in on some more of that. I mean, I'm still on that deal. I still get the royalty checks and stuff, but it's hard to get into the sync licensing thing. Anyway, it has been for me. I mean, I haven't tried real hard, but I've just started kind of doing research on it, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I feel like it's an industry that changes, every 5 years it's a new playing field or something, like that. And now we've got this world of AI showing up, which is probably going to change a lot of things in that world too.
True.
But
yeah,
bottom line is people still people still do. I know there's an argument that people can't tell the difference, the average person, but I think that there's a quality of genuine to a lot of the stuff we do, rock and roll and things like that, that people do appreciate,
Yeah, this was all punk stuff. He would say, I need 10 songs in the vein of, this band. And we, just Zach, his name is Zach. He would just reverse engineer the songs and sort of rewrite them and technically kind of rip them off a little bit, and then like when I watch the program, I can't even hear the music in the background. Like it's so quiet.
They turn it down so quietly, don't they?
Right. So I wouldn't even know if they were playing one of our songs. But as long as...
Now, when you guys reference a punk song, do you go like all the way back to like Minor Threat and bands like that, or is it much more current kind of?
No, he wanted
tour punk and stuff like that.
No, he wanted I think that group of songs we did. He was like, I want something like the Vandals. So yeah, no, he liked old school punk. It wasn't like pop punk. No. Yeah. No, it was old school stuff. And I remember when I first, I'm not a punk guy. I know a little bit about punk just from having him as such a good friend, but,
well, you must know something about it if you played those drums, man. That's punk drums are some of the harder drums to play.
Yeah, which brings me to what I was going to say is I have way more respect for punk drummers now since I did that, because I came up in the world of drumming of, I was always trying to be like, Dave Weckl and Vinnie Colaiuta and, those were my heroes. And so, to me, punk was like, oh, that's just, those guys are just chopping wood, And then when he asked me
Turns out they're chopping wood really quickly.
And very good. Yeah. I made it through the recordings, and it was the first time I ever recorded drums myself. And so I got through it, but it's nothing I would say I'm proud of as far as the drumming part of it. But I got through it, yeah. And,
so when I think of punk, I think about that beat that goes like doom ti goom ti goom ti goom ti goom. Like that's a really common punk groove, right?
Yeah, there's two or three really common beats.
What is that? Yeah, what is that? How do you think of and describe the different beats in punk that you learned about?
The ones that they kind of taught me or that I've learned is sort of, just like that, that's a real common one. Or the first three beats on the kick drum. So it's like that one's real common, but fast, like so
yeah.
So yeah, it's about speed and accuracy, and the guys that do it right are just amazing. I like I said, I kind of slopped my way through it. And there's sloppy punk drummers, and playing live, you have a large margin of error, but recording, as you know, you're under a microscope and yeah, just a whole new respect for punk drummers. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you like to record drums too. Is it time to go there some?
Sure. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you feel like you tried different stuff when it came to recording punk drums? Do you?
Oh my gosh.
Do you feel like you have a variety of ways that you approach recording drums?
Yeah, I mean, especially at first, I was the typical, like, I'm throwing up 15 mics on this thing. I'm trying I would do a different miking setup for every drummer.
Yeah.
And then I would say within the last couple of years, I've kind of settled into some go-to mics and some methods that I like. But yeah, I played with like mid-side room recording and stuff, and big stereo room mics and everything in between. And I would say recently, probably what I've settled on is, don't reinvent the wheel. I've just inside outside kick. I like to use the AKG D12. It's the new one, the VR.
Okay.
And you can switch it, like if the switch is in the middle, it's just a regular, like a dynamic kick mic. And then if you feed it phantom power, you can switch it to one side or the other, and then it's pre-cued.
Ah, okay.
And so if you like that, I like to EQ my own kick sound, so I usually just use the middle setting, just a dynamic with no phantom power. But
I imagine sometimes they add settings like that too, because there's situations
for
live situation. Sure. Yeah. Where it's like it's easier to just get a pre, hyped sound come out of the mic than to have to dial it in at the mixer.
Right. It just gives you a little more. It gives you a little bit more choice. Like technically, the Beta 52 is pre-cued. But
is it? Yeah. And I think the D112 is also
they are what they are.
Shaped,
Yeah, they're kind of a smiley face, EQ curve on them. But I like that on the inside. Typical 47 FET on the outside. Snare drum 57 on the bottom, usually a 57 on the top, or I like the Bayer Dynamic, the M201.
Right.
On the top. It was a pretty sweet snare mic. I am really enjoying the new Lawton tom mics that are specifically made just for toms.
Yeah, Lawton makes some great mics. I haven't used their tom mics yet, but I know their mics
they're brand new,
quite good.
Yeah, they just came out this year. They're a condenser with some EQ settings on them. You can roll off low end and high end to sort of you can roll off the high end on them to sort of cancel out some of the cymbal bleed.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like one of the recurring themes is you just one of the more important roles for a tom mic is to just not make the cymbals scream through them.
Right. And so they're
have
good at that.
Off-axis rejection.
Yes, and that's the other thing they have. They have really good off-axis rejection along with the as a matter of fact, the off-axis is so good that sometimes I don't even do the high-end roll-off because, then you lose some of the attack of the stick. So it just depends on the style and what you're going for. But if you don't even touch the EQ settings on them, the noise rejection is great, and they just are a great sounding. You get that full tom sound of a condenser that you don't quite get, with a 421, or a dynamic.
Yeah.
What's the go-to? The Sennheiser,
Yeah, Sennheiser 421. That's a common one.
Yep, which I always use those before. They sound great. Nothing wrong with them,
Yeah, when I was working with Albini, he would always use, he used a lot of the AKG 451s.
Yep,
and he'd get like a knuckle mount so that it would go at a 90-degree angle, so you could bring the mic body up over the edge of the drum, and then it would do a 90-degree turn and point the capsule down.
Sure.
So that it was sort of out of the way. I don't remember how the rejection was with cymbals, but I think a lot of times we were in his space. we're recording in pretty wide open rooms, so the drums could be a little bit spread out. You could get the cymbals away from the toms.
From the toms, yeah.
And then I feel like he collaborated with Josephson to make the E22 or something.
The side address.
Yeah, the side address tom mic.
Yeah, can't afford those
things. I use those,
awesome.
and those sounded so good.
Those
really
things are awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, in videos that I've seen of him, I've seen him using the Josephson but they're definitely a higher end mic, but they sound
They are
incredible.
indeed, yeah. And we would have access to we could do tops and bottoms of the toms with those mics, and it was that was quite a sound.
I haven't done that. I said I've tried just about everything on drums, but have I? I can't remember. Maybe I did it once where I did the top and the bottom. But if I did, I only did it once. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just requires more inputs and mic pre's and mics and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I if we're recording drums with a console, which Steve did a lot, I mean, he was going through his Neotech. I think we would have just taken those inputs. We might have used the console mic pre's for all I remember, and then to just get blended, down to one channel and then print it on tape as a single tom.
Yeah.
But it's fun to try all the different ways that we can record stuff. Drums, particularly drums, are the place where we get to really flex, our engineering and just figure out what do we want to try? What should we do? What should the drums even sound like or feel like on this track?
Yeah. They're definitely one of those instruments that it seems like engineers that have even been doing it forever, they still change it once in a while, or they come, they learn something. I mean, I'm always learning something new about recording drums. Yeah, it's just kind of, but I am, like I said, I am trying to kind of start to settle in on some recording methods now and not be, experimenting all the time. Which that's fun to do that, but you have to do that on your own. Obviously, the bands I record definitely don't have time or a budget for anything like that. You know?
That was a comment that Steve made where he said, because we were asking him about changing, do you try lots of stuff? What do you do? And he once told me that he would use his go-tos. He'd do the same kind of setups for things, but he enjoyed changing out one element on each tracking session. Like one was enough to try an experiment, try something new, really understand what it did, but still have that ability to have the reliability of all the other stuff that we know works.
Yeah, totally. I think I definitely fall into that category where the close mics I kind of settled in on quicker, and then the thing that I would experiment a lot, even with a paying band, where I would try something different is room mics and overheads.
Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Yeah. Let's talk about that, man, because I that's another really important question mark on drum recording is the overheads. I'd be curious what you think the overheads bring to a recording. But obviously, an obvious answer might be, well, that's how you hear the cymbals, and then it's like, okay, well, what do we want our cymbals to sound like on this track? And then the room mics, that's the place where I feel like you can really bring in the excitement on the drums.
Absolutely, yeah, crush them, yeah. To me, the overheads, kind of like you said for cymbals, the overheads fall into two categories for me. You're either just really trying to concentrate on the cymbals, or you're trying to do the overall kit capture. I tend to place my overheads so that I'm doing the overall kit. I'm trying to get the overall kit capture, not just the cymbals. And of course, just doing that, you still get plenty of cymbals. So
in other words, if you were to listen to, like if we didn't have the kick and the snare mics turned on yet, and we were hearing your overheads, might we hear something that still kind of sounds like a full drum kit at that point?
Pretty decent balance. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I go for. And then bring in the close mics underneath that. And then depending on the type of music, like let's say it is something sort of punky or pop punk, definitely, then I really bring those down, and then it's more of just the close mic sound.
Right.
And then the room mic for the excitement. And room mics, I like ribbons. I like them low and, maybe a foot off the ground and maybe only 5 feet out in front of the drums. Sometimes just mono, sometimes I'll set 2 of them up, but yeah, I've kind of tried I had the, oh gosh, you were just talking with the guy from, Vanguard. Is it the is it the 44? Is that the stereo?
Yeah, the S44.
Yeah.
Or the 44S. The stereo mic is his, you can rotate the capsules on it. And it's
I had that mic for a while. I don't have it anymore. But that was a great room mic, especially because you could just turn them capsules. You could do mid-side stuff super easy with the summing box that comes with it. And so yeah, that was a cool mic. But yeah, that I'd say I've kind of settled in on the Royer, is it the R10? I believe they're called. They're the step down from the 121. They're a little bit more affordable.
Okay, yeah.
Couple of those, about a foot off the ground out in front of the kit. Maybe sometimes 2 feet off the ground, depending on how much low end I'm trying to get and how much cymbals I'm trying not to get or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I've settled in on.
So 5 feet out in front of the kit, what if there's a wall behind that? What if there's a wall, 8 feet away from the kit? Have you recorded drums in smaller spaces and bigger spaces now with your remodel? Where you sort of know the difference, and do you have any thoughts about how to address the smaller space for those who are starting out there still?
Yeah, the first room I was in, directly across from me, we have the control room I'm sitting in. I have 2 windows on 2 different walls. One looks into the old, what was the live room. Now we call it the dead room. It's real dead in there, and it's a smaller room. And then if I look to my left, I look out another window, and that goes into my new live room. But before we built that, we were recording over there, and it's probably regular 8-foot ceilings, maybe not even 8 foot. And I would say it's 400 square feet. It's like a 20 by 20 square. Treated the crap out of it, especially right over the kit, put lots of foam on the ceiling above the kit. And it sounded fine, but you definitely needed to add, some reverb and stuff to the room mics to get something exciting and a lot of compression this new room drums just sound good in there. You throw up a mic in that room and I wasn't a huge believer because I didn't have a lot of experience in recording. It was hard for me to go, well, you can do everything now in the box. It's like, let's just, what's wrong with that little room? We record drums in there and we make them sound killer in the box, or whatever. And it wasn't until we actually built that room and the first time I heard drums in there, it was like, oh, wow, yeah, there is something to be said for playing drums in a big room with high ceilings. You can't fake that, even with as good as plugins are getting.
Now, how big is the big room for you now?
It's not huge. It's probably 25 by 20. It's shaped really weird. It's shaped like a house. So there's only 2 perpendicular walls, and then the other 2 come to an apex.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the 2 walls that are perpendicular.
Is the apex the far end away from the drums? Is that where the apex is? Or do you put the drums in the apex like it's a megaphone just shooting out into the room?
It can be. I've changed it. I've found that I kind of like the sweet spot is almost just kind of right in the middle of the room. facing one of the other, and then the two parallel walls are treated with sound diffusion. Little like, it's hard to explain them. They're like felt, weird geometrical shaped things that you just glue to the wall, and they're kind of like spaced randomly all over those two parallel walls, since they're the only two that sound would actually bounce back and forth to, but that kills that. And then the other walls, nothing bounces directly back from those because they're all weird and off. And then the ceiling actually goes at a slant too. The ceiling starts at like 14 feet, and then it goes up at the other end of the ceiling, then you're at like 18 feet.
That's funny. You just had a cartoon thumbs up pop up on your screen. We must have some setting turned on. Yeah, it's funny.
I don't know.
don't worry about it. So that's cool. Yeah. Well, it's fun. It's fun when you get into a new space and you've got that ability to try things. Try the drums in this corner. Try the drums in that corner. What, as a drummer yourself, do you instinctively seek out a certain spot in the room? Like, do you do something where you're like, oh, I wonder what the kick sounds like over here. Or I wonder what the snare sounds like over here. Or is it more like, I wonder where I can set my stool and, lay my drum kit out so there's enough room around me? Because I feel like that's kind of an important question that you can't avoid too, right?
Yeah, obviously, depending on your room, you don't have those choices, but after this new room, as a matter of fact, before it was even done, I was like walking around in there with a snare drum and a stick, just whacking it and trying different things and looking for the spot. And I can set them up just about anywhere in there and they sound pretty decent. There's definitely spots that I found where, you just get that nice room, you get that nice natural reverb, you hear an echo, you hear reverb, but it doesn't come back. It disappears, and I've got clouds on the ceiling too. So it's live, but it's not so live that, there's reflections flying all over the place. It's still a treated room, one whole wall, maybe from the pictures you saw, I've got wood on that wall with like wood strips on there that, just for diffusion. Otherwise, the other walls are sheetrock with paint and some sound diffuser things that I told you about that we glued on there. And then I've got clouds hanging up on the ceiling. So it's just, you can pretty much set up wherever you're comfortable in there. And depending on if I'm recording a whole band, or
what do you do? What do you do for your whole band setup? Where do you put amps, for example?
In the ISO booths. So off in that same live room, there's two doors on each side of the live room. And if you open those doors, you go into ISO rooms that have, jacks on the wall for everything. Speakers, microphones, everything's built into the walls and comes into the control room. Yeah.
And so, did you build those from scratch as well?
Yep. They're part of that room, kind of. Yeah. Yep. Those were all built as part of that room.
Amazing. Well, let's talk about that for a sec. So when you're in a space and you've got all this room and you can build rooms within rooms, did you have to build in such a way that your new wall was like only, inches away from the existing outer wall? Or is this place so big that you could just build, like almost like when you go to the mall and there's a New Orleans house inside this atrium area, and you're like, oh, that's the restaurant or whatever. Is it like that kind of room within a room, or is it like you're close?
It's pretty close to the walls. Yeah. So, like one wall was already existing, of course, that's in the control room here, the wall that is between me and the new room. But then, the other wall is just a few inches off of the original metal siding. But first we insulated all that with styrofoam, up against the metal. Then we came out a couple inches, did 2x6 framing. Then that's all filled with rock wool. And then, sheetrock on both sides of it, so there's definitely, we tried to, do what we could for soundproofing along with sound treatment. But I did have some constraints. It's not like a room out in the middle of another big room, like you can't get in between the walls of the building and the new, it's still close to all the walls. But it's not
Which is interesting because that is a way to think about studio design for us too. Sometimes we can think, well, what if I make this space in between two walls big enough that it becomes an actual usable space? It can become like storage or maintenance or things like that, and they become like sound lock chambers, between two rooms, or a hallway. That can be a clever way to design something in like that.
We just left enough space for so that they're not touching any of the existing walls. The new walls aren't actually touching any of the other walls, and then plenty of room for like when we ran all the cabling through. And like if I want to take my panel off the wall for where I break everything out of here into the live room for microphone hookups and stuff, I had Redco built that for us.
Yeah,
panel with just like custom. Like I just they have a thing on their website where you can design it yourself. I want this many to be XLR. I want this many to be speaker, and they just make it and send it to you. And if I take that off of the wall in here or out in the live room, there's like plenty of room in between those walls to like get my arms in there. And like if I wanted to ever change any of that stuff, there's room to work. Yeah, I can't climb in there, but there's room to like get your arms in there and solder guns and yeah.
It's funny. I left a space between my control room wall and the ISO room that is, you can kind of like squeeze in there. But the truth is, after you have a studio for a while and it's, you've had it for a minute, it's like, it's not really big enough to go in. You can squeeze in there, but you don't really want to squeeze in where the spiders go, and all that kind of stuff. So it's
and
something
Nevada's
to consider,
famous for we've got lots of black widows here. So
well, Nashville is and all of Tennessee is brown recluse spiders. So you're always like
even worse, I guess.
Watching out for those
we've
guys.
got those here too, but they're not as prolific as the black widows. It's like I'll kill one in front of my studio that made a web during the evening, and the next day when I come, there's like another one that replaced it. I mean, they're just
prevalent. Yeah.
Pretty prevalent, yeah. They love.
And I'm happy to let the creatures live in their worlds, but if their world is in my world, then I'm like, okay, hold on, guys.
Yeah, if it's right in a doorway, it's got to go. Yeah,
yeah. Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26, loaded with creative tools for songwriting, production, mixing, and sound design. The big news is the return of the legendary Absinthe 6, with evolving textures, cinematic soundscapes, and experimental sounds designed to spark new ideas fast. Contact 8 continues to be the center of the complete ecosystem, with built-in tools for chords, phrases, grooves, and arrangement to help keep you in the creative flow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, Play Series sounds, and premium tools from Isotope and Brainworks, including Ozone 12 Elements, Complete 26 gives you everything that you need to produce in any genre. Plus, Native Instruments continues expanding NKS integration with complete control keyboards and machine hardware. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session. My guest today is Toby Suess, joining us from Tin Roof Studio in Nevada. So very excited to jump in and kick it off again. We talked a lot about the larger rooms in the studio. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a rewind into some small room stuff, but also we've got some pretty cool stuff to talk about with a court case. So Toby, you ready to jam, dude?
I am. Let's jam.
So before we jump into the similarities in our stories and this dealing with the city and that kind of system, the courts and all that kind of stuff that you had to do, which I'm excited to hear about. I love to ask guests for an inspirational quote. Is there anything that gets you excited for hitting the studio? Sorry, I got a new watch and I don't know how to turn off the sound. Is there anything that kind of gets you excited about hitting the studio, or anybody who's a real inspiration to you that comes to mind?
I mean, inspiration. I mean, I would say an inspirational. I don't even know so much if it's a quote, But years ago, I read a book, and I wished I could remember who the author was, but he had he had basically traveled the world, um, trying to figure out why some people are quote unquote successful, and success can
Yeah.
mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
And why some people just are maybe living in a cardboard box, but maybe that's successful for somebody. I don't know, but and so he talked to kings, and he talked to presidents and world leaders and Fortune 500 company owners and all these people, homeless people, people, just, regular lunchbox Joe people, trying to answer this question. And he was going to write this giant book on it, all the answers to success. And if I remember correctly, I'm probably misquoting all of this, but the gist of it was, when he got done, the book was extremely short because he figured out what the key to success was. And this is nothing new. But he just said the common theme that he found after talking to everybody was successful people, when everything we do, whether you're learning how to play a guitar or interviewing for a job, whatever it is, whatever kind of a skill you might be trying to learn, it always gets to a point where it gets hard. It gets it gets uncomfortable, and he just learned that successful people just move past that. They keep going, and people that quit don't become successful in whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And we never really talked. I was a teacher before I got into this for years, and man, I saw that especially in the last 10 years. Or longer, basically since kids have small, powerful computers in the palms of their hands.
Yeah.
Man, anything we did in the classroom, as soon as it got a little uncomfortable, as soon as it got a little bit like you're gonna have to think a little bit, this is gonna be a little bit hard, they just would cave, middle schoolers and high schoolers is what I taught, and they just as soon as it got to that point, they were done.
As if that doesn't apply to us as adults, too.
Everybody.
Right?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I know plenty of adults that do that, including myself. I mean, there's stuff that I get to a certain point and I'm just like, I'm done with this,
Yeah. Well,
But-
it's funny that you bring up the kids growing up with the, here I am. I just said I got a new watch, So like we've got so much stuff. I mean, I'm literally talking to you through a computer right now. We're talking across
Right.
the country, and we have phones. We have, our TVs will bring all kinds of entertainment to us. If you don't want long form entertainment, then you can flip over to YouTube and get a short form,
Yeah.
And if that's too long, you can go to Instagram and get reels, So there's always like some level of something to consume. And I feel like that can be a challenge for us creatively too. And to your point, like when the going gets tough, it's so easy to just hit the pause button and let something kind of take over and do the work for us in the moment and entertain us for a little bit. And it's a tricky balancing act. I don't know if you still feel that.
God, yeah, every day. I mean, don't all musicians? I mean, it's so easy to, if I have to see one more YouTube video of a 4-year-old just ripping on a kit, there's nothing that makes you want to sell your drum set and just stop more than seeing that stuff. The stuff these kids are doing on drum sets now, it's just like, and I know it's YouTube and you never know how many takes it took them or whatever. And I don't watch that stuff. I try to avoid it, but I've seen enough of them that, yeah, as musicians, it's really easy to just go, you know what? I'm never going to be Vinnie Colaiuta, I'm never going to be,
right.
I'm never going to be Todd Zuckerman on the drums. I should just quit, It's really easy to do that. Yeah.
Well, and then on top of that, that's the moments and places where we compare ourselves too.
Yep.
To others and outside stuff. And I think that's a missed opportunity too, for a number of reasons. One is I do believe that what we have, that's what's like truest to ourselves and what we can bring to the table, bring to the studio, bring to the song, bring to the music, bring to the performance, the instrument. The more of that is us, the better it's going to be anyway, and the more interesting it is. And then on top of that, it's like, the other part about comparisons that I think could be a problem is it overlooks the fact that just the very act of creating and playing drums or recording in a studio, recording ourselves, recording other bands, just the very act of doing that is satisfaction, that is success. So don't overlook that,
Sure,
just
100%.
enjoy it.
No, I think a lot of the artists that come in here, I've heard several of them say the same thing. They're like, I'm going to release this stuff. I might release it. I might not. I just got to get it out of my head. I hear that a lot. I've been sitting on these songs and I got to get rid of them. I got to move on, And hey, at the end of the day, they're happy and they love their recording and they don't care if 2 people listen to it. Which brings me to something that I've experienced. I know I'm going off on another tangent here, but when it comes to mixing, I've found sometimes that you definitely can tell when you're mixing for the band or if you're mixing for the average listener from their revision notes.
Yeah.
I'll get stuff sometimes, and I'm just like my wife is great for running mixes by. She's 100% an average music listener, She doesn't play any instruments, which is weird because both of her parents do, and they're totally musical. But I can run a mix by her, and if I thought something was really poking out that they asked me to do, she picks up on it. She'll be like, "Why is the bass guitar like the only thing I can hear?" Or whatever. And I'm like, "Yeah, that was one of the revisions they wanted me to do." And there's nothing wrong with that. If I'm making it for them and they know that nobody's going to listen to it, and it's just for them and their buddies in the band and 2 other guys, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But it definitely makes you realize that you can't get too precious about these projects because sometimes it can get weird in the mix. Yeah. And other bands, I can tell right away, they're like, yep, this is, you can tell you're mixing it because they want a lot of people to enjoy it,
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting conundrum for us to think about too, because a couple of thoughts come to mind. So, when we're putting together a studio and we're offering the service of recording other musicians, there can be a question mark around that people might ask. They might say, are people creating in studios? Are they playing in bands together these days? Does AI compete with the ability to have a career and make a living making music? But I think one of the ideas that what you bring up sparks for me is this idea that despite all those things, I think everybody's got an urgency to tap into their creative stuff more. We all want to make more music, make more art. And so there's always that drive. And even just offering what you're doing, where you respect people who still want to come in and just record because it's fun and just because they got to get it out, give them that experience is a real service, And then on top of that, as studios, reflecting back to you, what you just said, Toby, where it's like sometimes they want to make a wacky sounding mix and it's like, what if this was a little bit better balanced? Maybe as studios, we have the opportunity to just give clients what they want and then also just circle back, for that extra over delivery and just say hey guys, just for fun, I also did another balance where I really tried to balance everything. Just, now you've got it, you never know. You might enjoy this one too.
Yeah. And I do that. I think most mixers, do that. They send them maybe a couple of versions, and I just recently did that. And I had one of the band members, he texted me and he said, he had 3 versions and he said, "Man, I think you nailed it on the first one, but there are some parts, and we ended up with this, a happy medium, but he was like, I'm going to go with the first one, but he goes, what would you charge me to master the other 2 also? And I said, all 3 that I sent you everything's, he didn't know a whole lot about recording and mixing and stuff. I said, those versions I sent you are all mixed and mastered, and they're ready to be released. They're radio ready right now. And I said, and they're yours. Do whatever you want with them. You own them now.
You didn't say $1 million.
Yeah. No, I
Dr. Evil style.
Yeah, I was just surprised that he even asked me, but he admitted that he, didn't know the process that well. And I guess, some guys might chart, yeah, well, you owe me this for this version and this, but I was just like, no, man, they're yours. Do whatever you want with them. If you like all 3 of them, they're yours,
That's groovy, man. That's groovy. So, well, it's clear that you're trying to really offer a service to everybody. So let's talk about that too. Now, putting your studio together, as you know, I went through quite a ordeal here in Nashville fighting for my right to have a studio and work from it, and everybody's right to have a studio and work from their studios here in Nashville. And it sounds like you had a little bit of a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird because I was following that along with you as it was happening on your podcast and stuff, and then we started this place, and we actually got a business license. I'm in an industrial zoned area. I mean, I did it on purpose. I did not want to do this in my garage from the very beginning, even if it was just going to be me rehearsing my drums. I didn't want to just do it in a residential area, and that's why I purposely looked in a industrial zoned area. And then once we kind of started recording bands and not just ourselves, I thought it would be a good idea, just a safety net, to get a business license, So I did that. Yeah. We got a business license. We're in here. We're recording bands. And before I know it, I'm getting sheriffs showing up. And I'm not talking.
And they didn't show up with guitars. They weren't slinging guitars when they showed up.
Yeah, it was the sheriffs were coming at like 4:00 on a Sunday. And next to me, I have a plumbing business, and they're loud. And I'm also near a fairly noisy highway. And I told the sheriff the first time he came, I'm respectful of law enforcement, I didn't want to start nothing. And I said, well, we have a business license and we're in an industrial area and this is a business. I said, we're wrapping it up right now. But I said, I am going to kind of look into this because I'm not sure that you should be able to tell us that we need to, quiet it down or whatever. And that was the end of it. And then probably a week later, same thing happened. He came again. And in that time, I called a friend of mine, who happens to be the judge here in town, and he plays bass. Nice. And, I called him and I said, I know this is really unethical and I'm not supposed to be calling you to ask your advice, but I told him what happened. And he said, we don't even have a noise ordinance in this town. This town I live in isn't that big. I'm like 60 miles east of Reno. And
there's a lot of space around everybody too, right?
Yeah. It's spread out but there's this small trailer court right across from me. And how that ever got zoned, I think it was back like before they had any zoning laws in the town, Yeah. And so they're sort of like stuck there in the middle of this industrial area, which is not my fault, but it is what it is. And they have to listen to the highway and all these businesses out here and stuff. But anyway, I did find out that it was somebody over there that complained, and that's why the sheriffs were showing up. And anyway, when I called my friend, the judge, he said, when they come again, if they come again, he said, just very politely tell them, that you're not going to turn it down, and that you're running a business, and if he feels the need to write you a citation, then go ahead and write me a citation, and we'll let the court settle it. So sure enough, they came back again the next week, and I very politely told them, I said, if you feel like you need to give me the citation, go ahead, and we'll let the courts settle this. And he said, well, that's what I'm trying to avoid. He said, I'm trying to avoid giving you a citation. I said, yeah, but I can't keep doing this. Like if you interrupt in the middle of a session or something, that's, costing me and time.
That's disruptive.
Disruptive. Yeah. To my business. And so, He left, and I thought, well, maybe that's the end of it. He didn't give me anything that day.
If you record music, podcasts, video, or dialogue, the brand new iZotope RX12 is one of the most powerful audio repair tools you can add to your studio. RX12 now features AI-powered scene rebalance, letting you separate dialogue, music, and sound effects for incredible control and post-production. The new Stems view makes stem editing faster and more visual than ever, while upgraded music rebalance and dialogue isolate deliver cleaner separations with improved machine learning. RX12 also adds trim silence, helping podcasters and editors instantly remove dead space and speed up long-form editing workflows. Plus, rebuilt de-bleed tools and real-time processing improvements make cleaning up noisy recordings easier than ever. From restoring damaged audio to fixing podcast interviews, guitar tracks, vocal tracks, and film dialogue, RX12 is the industry standard toolkit trusted by producers, podcasters, post-production engineers, and music makers worldwide. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off.
And then probably 3 or 4 days later, I'm sitting out here at the studio and my Ring camera on my front door goes off at home, and it's a sheriff putting something on my door. And I got home, and sure enough, it was like a summons, and here's your court date, and here's your charges, disturbing the peace,
Wow.
the whole thing. I found out who made the complaint. I went and talked to him. It was this nice gal. She was elder.
Did you bring her a fruit basket?
I went over there and just killed her with kindness. I said, why didn't, she goes, we talked, we visited for a little while. She admitted it was her. And I said, well, you have to go to court now. I said, this whole thing is going to court and I'm going to subpoena you. You're going to have to come testify. Oh, I don't want to do that. You're one of the nicest men I've ever met, and I thought it was kids. I thought there were kids in the storage units over there. I thought there was kids playing. I said, no, we're all adults. I've got a business license. And so she wrote a statement thing retracting her complaint and gave that to me. She did not want to go to court. So I had that. I did a bunch of, I bought, like a reference microphone for, metering noise levels and stuff. And I took all kinds, I had bands come out here and play as loud as they could. And I went over by the trailer court and recorded it all, printed it all out.
Wow. Amazing.
Man, I just became a lawyer over I went down the rabbit hole deep. I was like, this is wrong. When you're
now, as you were going into this, you had heard the case that I was going through. Did you hear me talk about doing any of those similar kind of things and doing measurements outside and all that kind of stuff?
No, did you?
Yeah, we did. We actually had an expert audio guy come over.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure I could have done it myself, but he did have a really nice dB meter.
Yeah.
And he went to the fence lines and did measurements all around the studio. And we were able to present that in court too. And it totally passed. It was he was like, yeah, flying colors, man.
Yeah. I had all the meter readings, and no matter how loud I told bands to purposely play as loud as they could, crank their amps up,
Yeah.
And no matter what, the overriding noise was always the highway. The highway, if a car or a semi went by, it blew away whatever was coming from here. Literally, it was quiet enough when a band was playing in here for those people in the trailer court to hear it. They would have had to have come outside. If they were in their trailer, they could not have heard us. Because we insulated the windows and put plywood over them and everything. We did what we could with the budget that we were on. And anyway,
plus you're in an industrial zone.
Plus, yeah.
That's the whole point of an industrial zone.
Exactly. There is no noise ordinance in industrial zones, And so I decided I was going to go talk to the DA, the district attorney, before this thing even went to court, and I thought maybe these guys don't know what comes across their desk, and he just signed it and didn't really read the complaint. I don't know, I'm just going to try, maybe cooler heads, adults, this doesn't have to go to court, So I set up an appointment. He had me. I came into his office. I started talking about it, and he kind of stopped me about 2 minutes into it, and he just goes, whoa. He says, if you think this is going away, it's not. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, this is going to court. And I go, oh, okay, well, I thought maybe we could talk. And he goes, well, can I see your business license? And I said, no. I go, what, for what? This is over, right? We're going to court. He goes, yep, I guess I'll see you there. And I said, all right, we'll go to court then, So I left. And the court date came, a month, 2 months later. We basically kind of had a cease and desist or whatever you call it.
Cease and desist. Yeah.
I think we
I like cease and desist. It's really gruesome.
Yeah,
that's the rocker coming.
Either way, you're not recording, whether you're deceased or they give you a. Yeah. So. Yeah, we had to cancel a couple of sessions and stuff because we were afraid to do anything while we were waiting for the court case to come up. Finally, the date came. I've got all my paperwork, Lidge. I'm ready. Like I'm Mr. Lawyer. I'm ready to go to town on this. And I'm sitting outside of the courtroom on a bench waiting for the previous case to end. And here comes the DA. He comes walking in and he comes over to me and he says, "Hey, can we go in one of these little conference rooms and talk? I just want to talk to you for a second before we go into the judge." And I said, okay. And so we went into the little conference room and he goes, you know what? He goes, I just want to throw this out. And, he said, the sheriffs that came out, they're not even going to testify. And I just want to end it, And I said, nah, we're going to talk to the judge. I said, I want to end it, like for real, end it,
Yeah, you want a ruling.
Right. I said, I've put so much time into this, and I said, I'm so upset at this point. And, it was very emotional for me. I mean, we had a ton of money dumped into this, and, I thought I had done everything right. I picked an industrial area. I got the business license. I did everything you're supposed to do, And so we went in there, and he didn't come in. He sent in his like paralegal, some young girl. And he didn't even come into the courtroom, and the judge, said, "What are we doing?" And she, explained the charges and everything. And he looked at me and he said, he goes, I'm not even going to look at this any further. He said, I'm just throwing this out. He said, you have no case. He goes, but I am going to rule it. Now, I always screw this up. It's either with prejudice or without prejudice. Okay. So one of them, the lawyers out there, the rock stars, they can explain this better than me. But if they rule, I think if it's with prejudice, that means that if anybody should complain, they can bring the charges right back up again. The case just comes back. In other words, it's their way of avoiding double jeopardy. And that they could just bring the whole thing back again. And
which is bad. That sounds like bad news. And you don't want that to happen.
No, I don't. And so I had already done the paperwork to file them to make a judgment without prejudice. And I told him that when the judge said that. And like I said, I know him. He's a bass player, and he went to the same church and played in the church band that I went to. And I said, well, actually, I'd like you to rule without prejudice. And he kind of looks at me, and he goes, do you have the paperwork for that? And I go, yep, it's all in here. And he goes, I tell you what, he goes, this isn't even a case. He goes, I'm throwing this whole thing out. He said, we're not going to do it with or without. He said, if you ever get a complaint again, if it should ever come back again, he said, you bring all them recordings back, you bring all your paperwork, that whole file you've got there, you bring that back, and then I'm going to rule, and that's going to stand. Wow. And you know what? Of course, nobody has complained since. And like I said, I found who the complainant was. She's fine with it. Turned out she was just, you know what it is, Lidge? It's a new noise that bugged them. You know how, like, even though it's not very loud, if it's a new noise, you hear it, the perceived loudness is louder than, so when we're in here, dialing in a kick drum and somebody's in there hitting it 90,000 times, sure, it bugged them, but like I said, I think she thought it was kids. I think she thought it was a band. Anyway, they've never complained again. I'll just add that after the case was closed, another gal from over there came over. She was another one of the complainants. There was about 3 of them, but only one of them was brave enough to call the sheriff. She came over to tell me something that she saw on my property. She was just being a good neighbor. I can't even remember what she came over to tell me about, but I said, hey, while you're here, do you want to come in and see the studio and like see what we're doing here? And oh, sure, I love music. And she came in, she was being all nice, and And I said, yeah, I was showing her the windows. I said, we've got insulation in there. We've got wood. I said, we really did try. We didn't come out here to like piss our neighbors off. We all want to get along. I said, we tried our best to soundproof those. And then she just kind of looks at me and she snaps and goes, well, a little bit of insulation in the windows. That's not soundproofing. That's not going to do anything. And at that point, I kind of just like stopped being the nice guy. I wasn't rude, but I looked at her and I said, I really have tried to be nice. And I said, this has all gone through court. It's all a done deal. And I said, it's actually to the point now that if I get any more complaints or interruptions to my business, I'm probably going to have a case like against you. It's going to go the other way because I'm totally legal here. Everything I'm doing here, right. I'm not doing anything wrong, Yeah. And she, I guess, I can't remember what she said, but she went home and I haven't heard a peep out of anybody ever since. And we've been raging out here ever since. But,
well, it's a fascinating story and it's so encouraging just to be reminded. I mean, as musicians, I think we can sometimes come from we can come from feeling a little bit fringe on society, just mm-hmm. going into music and art and all that. And so when things like this happen, I think there's a tendency for us to feel sheepish about it and apologetic, on the surface. I know I did. I felt that way. So it certainly was true for me. But then coming around full circle and just saying, you know what, this is bullshit. I've got a right to be here. I've got a right to do this. As long as I'm not bothering somebody, as long as I'm not causing a problem for, or harming somebody else,
right.
then I should be allowed to do what I want to do, So it's really encouraging to hear you share that story and go through all that process, man.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, a
huge thank you from the whole music community just for kicking ass for all of us.
Yeah, to you, Lidge. I mean, I didn't even feel like mine should have even been an issue. Because like I said, that's why I did it out here. I literally was listening to what you were going through while I was planning and doing this project. And as a matter of fact,
amazing.
Your case had closed, I think, by then, and you had won. And I think I even downloaded and printed out like the the court decision, and I brought that with me, like as reference. Like,
amazing.
And I was like, look, if you can have it in your house in a residential area, why can't I have it in an industrial area? That's zoned for it.
Right.
And
I love it. We're making waves in Nevada.
Yeah. So anyway, it was. It was just a small, like I said, a small couple of complainants. And after I got to know them, I think, I was like, I told her, I go, why didn't you just come over and knock? Like, I said, she has like a big swamp cooler, up on top of her trailer, and her husband was handicapped. And I said, we're nice guys. Like, we could have came over and like helped you with stuff. And like, we did not come out here to make our neighbors mad, And I think she just really didn't know what it was. And, she was just kind of just old and sort of curmudgeon-y, I guess. But after she got to know me.
Well, people create images in their head about what something is without seeing it,
Yep.
It's to your point, strange things that are unusual. I mean, they ended up building all these new houses around me in my studio. When I, started my studio and, first lived here, I was just surrounded by fields. It was like, this is an ideal place to be. I don't want to bother anybody. And then they, build 6 houses right around me. Recently too, not related to the home studio battle that I went through, but more recently that happened. And, at one point, one of the houses put an air conditioner outside and I heard it and I was like, oh, I don't want to hear this, And then, so it's to your point about her, it's like, or whoever, we sometimes respond to something that's new by thinking it doesn't belong. And then, of course, I walked up to the front of my house, in frustration at one point, and I walk up by my own air conditioner. I'm like, oh shit, mine's pretty loud too. It's like, you just realize, it's like, oh, the world is full of stuff. You gotta cohabitate.
Yes.
So, What an amazing story, man. Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional-grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Now,
it is now, but at the time it was like, as you know, it was like,
yeah,
it was life consuming. I was just in a bad place because, like I said, we basically were shut down. And, but yeah, it's fun to look back at it now and just kind of laugh about it. But man, when you're in it, as you know, it's intense. It's intense.
Yeah. It's scary, man. It's scary, especially because, you know, to build a studio, we invest so much to do that. Even if we're at the first stage and we've just got our laptop and our speakers, you know, and we've spent a few $100 on an interface. I mean, that feels like a lot for us, you know? It's like, it's scary to think that we could start something and then, you know, you just want to express yourself musically and artistically. And then the feeling that we're going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
it's when drummers wish they were guitar players, right? When they could just plug into a little something on their headphones, but we can't do that.
Yeah, MIDI drums. I feel like virtual guitars are a little bit easier to swallow sometimes than having to play a MIDI drum kit.
Yeah.
But sample drums do sound pretty good in a recording also if you know, at times.
Yeah.
Combinations of things.
I have the trigger stuff, but I have to say I've never used it. I always thought, well, I'm just going to use this like in an emergency if something, you know, like maybe a microphone stand drooped or something and I didn't notice it till later, but I've never even used it to blend in, you know, underneath my drums, but I have it if it, and I've messed with it and they sound great. They sound great, but I've never completely replaced or even enhanced drums with the trigger yet.
Now, to that point, your drum recordings are already sounding great, so you're doing the right thing. It's more fun to get a great drum recording than to try and fabricate one anyway.
Yeah, and I'm just this last probably the last 2 or 3 recordings where I'm starting to get brave enough to, I mean, I didn't record with any EQ or compression or anything. And, you know, as you do this longer and, you know, especially a sort of a semi commercial recording studio like this, or if you're a home studio, the clients that you're getting, they want everything in-house. You know, like I didn't get into this to be a mixer. It's by default. You kind of have to, and mastering, because these bands can't afford to pay somebody else to do it. But so once I found out that, like, okay, I'm basically mixing and mastering, you know, whatever is recorded here. Let's start, you know, I started trying to make it sound as much like the record as I could while I'm recording. So now, I'm not afraid to throw compressors on things and do some EQing and kind of get it sounding, which makes my life way easier when it does come to the mix time, right? It's already kind of there. As long as you kind of know what the band is going for and stuff. You know, I would never do that if it was somebody I didn't know absolutely anything about their project. They had never even sent a demo. You know, I had no idea. Then I'd probably be a little bit more careful. But yeah, I'm
now let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that you're using to record. So you said you're recording into Studio One earlier, I think. But do you also, did I see photos of a mixing console in your studio as well?
Yeah, the Toft 32 channel. Bought this with the partner that I had, and I bought it from him when we split ways. And then I have a bunch of, not a bunch. I have, I don't know, 8 or 9 outboard pre's also. And I kind of use a combination.
I saw you had some Joe Meek.
I got a Joe Meek.
And also TG. Chandler TG.
Yep. Yeah. 500. Yep. And recently just got a Cappy Audio V28 500 pre that I'm using just for snare. And
Cool, man. Cool.
a couple of the AML 1073, the EZ 1073 from AML. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
Mm-hmm.
The 500 pre, the retro, beautiful. And then a couple of the Camden pre's, which are great because they got the, the high Z input right on the front, like just for doing scratch guitar and stuff. Just bam, plug right in there, and you're ready to go.
Yeah. So let me see. Let's rewind a little bit and talk about. Have you found that you integrate the console into your workflow?
Yeah.
How does that become? How do you find that to be a really welcome addition to your studio right now?
Oh man, it's great just to have all those extra channels, like I said, for scratch stuff, first of all. But then when I record drums, I actually did some shootouts not too long ago on the kick drum, same microphone, and I tried a bunch of my outboard pre's, and then used the pre on the Toft board. And I ended up going with the Toft board. It's just, I don't know how much you know about these boards, but they're kind of a little dark and gooey anyway, the pre's on them. They're great for recording drums. Toms sound killer on them.
And then you have EQ as well.
Yeah, you've got those great, Malcolm Toft, designed EQs, that, same as the Trident boards.
Yeah.
So yeah, the EQs, super musical and can just dial the sounds right in. And yeah, I was just like, man, I mean, I did record one time I recorded all of the drums through the board and it was great. But like I said, I'm using the Cappy pre for the snare, but I'm leaning more and more towards recording almost all of the drums through this board, even though I've got those other pre's. Yeah.
Now, do you also find that the console gives you that flexibility to do parallel compression while you're recording a drum kit if you want, or anything like that?
I mean, I could. Yeah. I haven't done that. I haven't done parallel while recording. And I'm not mixing anything. I'm not using the board to mix. We did when we first got it. I think we tried one song or something, and it's probably not the best board for mixing. It's great for recording. It's got quite a bit of crosstalk and bleed. But
you can also do, you can send stuff, so you can create additional effects. I mean, stuff that I found really fun mixing through a board was having parallel compression at the same time, so you can scoot that into a drum sound and you're hearing it right away.
Yeah.
Doing having even a Sans amp going at the same time on a parallel channel, because you can get a little bit more distorted excitement into a drum sound. It's just really fun to be able to sculpt that way.
Yeah, I don't even have the Sens hooked up right now. We used to have all of that hooked up, but I simplified my patch bay, and but yeah, I'm one patch bay away from I could hook all that back up again. It wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
I am still, just there when my partner and I split up. It was this big, you're taking this gear, I'm taking this gear, and I'm finally, just after a couple of years, starting to feel like I've got my gear back, I
know it takes a while. It takes a while just to get settled into a studio.
Yeah, and of course, I thought I was fine because I had the board. I lost quite a few outboard pre's. So I was like, well, I'm fine. I've got the board, And wouldn't you know it, of course, not 2 weeks after we broke up, the PSU for the board went out. And
the power supply.
And when it went out, it took a few channels with it. I don't know what happened. Lights started blinking all over it. It just freaked out. And I just thought, well, I need to get a new board, And so I need to mention, thank God for Don Melinda. He's my electrical technician, lives just down the road. Don't ask me how. He's just a godsend. I don't know why he lives down the road. I don't know how. I mean, I remember how I found him, but I literally could not have the studio without him. As you know, you got to have somebody that knows how to fix stuff. And this guy's amazing. Yeah. And he's unfortunately, one of the last Mohicans in that business, one of these old guys that just, not only does he know how to fix all this stuff, but he's a musician. He's a guitar player. He's a great luthier. So he sets up all my guitars. Anything that breaks, even if it's something he's never worked on, he can fix it. He's super reasonable as far as what he charges. And I thought I was going to have to get a new board. I asked him to come look at it. He doesn't really work on boards so much. He has, but not a lot. He definitely didn't know anything about this particular board. And he took the power supply, found a couple of caps that had burst and why it died. And so he did some recapping on that, got the power supply up and running again. There was nothing wrong with that, but then the channels on the board, there was still some that were messed up. And I said, well, it's going to cost me more than I can afford even to ship this thing. And I said, I have nothing to lose. Right now, it's an anchor. It's doing me no good. So how could I hurt it worse? Let's tear it apart. So I did. I took it out. I took the back off. I started pulling all the cards out, doing a little bit of testing of my own, and then I could just hand them off to him, and he would take them to his bench at his house, and he would just do his own testing. He knows enough to he knows how to test everything.
Kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and he just was like, oh, this is why this one's not working. Anyway, we went through every single card on this thing. He got everything working again. It's been perfect ever since.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's what a lucky break to find it. That is one of the things about doing a studio is inevitably we kind of need a technician. We need a support system.
Absolutely.
Because something's going to need adjustment. Something's
Yep.
going to need maintenance. And so we either learn how to do that stuff ourselves or we're lucky enough to find somebody who can actually do the electronic side or the guitar setups.
Yeah.
Or even the drum tuning. I mean, for those of us who aren't drummers like yourself, drum tuning can be a real, godsend if you've got somebody who can come make sure the drum set is set up properly.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of studios.
Do you want to talk about that for a sec?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about what you do when you're tuning up your drums or what advice you have for people?
I've been tuning them myself forever, kind of probably taking from lots of different things I've learned, and sort of came up with my own method, which is, pretty basic, just tuning to each lug, just tapping around after you get it to where you want it, and then just tapping but I've always just completely done it by ear. You're just hitting next by each lug, 2 inches into the head by each lug, till every one of them sounds the same, kind of a thing. I've always done it that way, and it's always worked fine for me. But I just recently bought the TuneBot. I don't know if you've seen that mechanism, but it clips onto the rim of the drum.
Is it a mechanical thing that goes on top or something?
No, that's the tune. That's the dial that you measure the pressure, the tension of the head. No, this is this is a little. It basically like a little snark tuner for a guitar that.
So when you started out in recording, what do you feel like was holding you back?
Me. Yeah. I think, I was still teaching. It was still kind of a hobby thing. And like I said, I'm married, got kids. Some are older, some have moved. I still have a son that lives with us. It's a sophomore in high school. So there was, just some reality in there too. But yeah, self-confidence. I think, a lot of us musicians or engineers, we all suffer from imposter syndrome. No matter how much experience we have, I dealt with that. So yeah, I would say probably my biggest drawback was me because, like the facility and the building and that kind of stuff actually came probably way easier than it does for most people, just because I had a little bit more disposable income. I wasn't, 20 and, living on peanut butter sandwiches, and I had some income to kind of get this thing rolling. But, so yeah, I really don't have any excuses other than myself. I probably, should have just went after it more 100%, which I am now.
Right on. And a good location too. This seems like a welcoming location,
yeah.
Other than the neighbors.
That is my biggest drawback for sure. If I was in Reno, I would be way busier,
Right.
That's the toughest thing is just people.
But the rent would also reflect that.
It would shoot sky high. I literally don't have overhead now because, like you said in the intro, I bought the place, so I'm paying for a little bit of heat and AC. Yeah,
that's great. Now, how about some of the best advice you received or remember receiving around music or recording?
Around music or recording?
Yeah, or even running your business. All of it.
Um, Man, I mean, there's so much advice I mean, like I said, I've basically learned from listening to podcasts and reading books. There's so much that I could talk about as far as advice, but I would I would probably say, like, for my life, probably the best advice I got was from my wife. When I was real young, when we first met, she was in college. I was just kind of a musician dirthead, playing in bands and
Mhm.
I remember her one night just saying, why don't you go to college?" And I was like, I'm not college material, like that's for those people. I was driving like a Volkswagen bus, and had hair down to the middle of my back. And yeah, I was like, no, I'm not college. And I barely made it through high school with credits and not because I'm stupid, but because I was just lazy and I liked spending my days at Lake Tahoe instead of going to school. I'd cut school every day and go up there and hang out. But she convinced, she's like, just take a couple courses. She's like, you're smart. You're a smart guy. And so I did it. And it was like complete, as college is, completely different than high school. And I loved it. I
Yeah.
liked the
Yeah.
autonomy of it and just like I'm paying for this and it's kind of like mine and I'm going to do with it what I want. And you're just going to do
Yeah.
better when you're doing that. And so, yeah, I ended up, going to school to be a teacher, which was crazy. At first I started with music. I was going to be a music teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably one of the most inspirational things that, and my parents they were always supportive of me with everything, but if she probably wouldn't have said that day, I don't know what I would have done, and I ended up being on the dean's list every year. I graduated with distinction and was
That's great,
successful
man.
at
What a
it.
great
Yeah.
story.
It should have went to recording
good.
school though, but hey.
I don't know. You went into teaching and that gave you a career path that led you ultimately to where you're doing it, doing the studio now. So
It helps knowing how to
it
herd
seems like it all
cats
kinds of
because
adds up.
sometimes the bands, man, they can be a lot like a classroom sometimes.
Meow.
Yeah.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. How about sharing a recording tip, hack, or secret sauce, something the rock stars could use on their next session? Anything that comes to mind. Anything fun.
I just spent a day with Larry Crane a few weeks back.
Oh, groovy, man.
I went up there and did a one-on-one workshop with him. And, shout out to Larry and any of you rock stars out there. If you live in his area, it's well worth the money. Go spend the day with him. He's awesome. And you know what a wealth of information he is, Lidge. And
Yeah.
he's a stickler for phase, and he's always and I knew that, and I'm conscious of checking phase and polarity when I'm setting up mics for drums and stuff. But we were talking about the Sound Radix plugin, the Auto Align 2.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, I thought when I was almost embarrassed to say I use it because I thought Larry was going to be like, no, you need to check that before, on the front end. And he was like, yeah, I check everything. But he said, I've been using that. And he said, he loves it. He's like, totally loves it. And I go, I love it too. I said, but the nice thing is, and he agreed with me, sometimes you'll run it, you'll click on it and you really can't hear a difference, which means it's just like this reassurance that you did your job, on the front end.
Right.
When you can't really hear anything. But a lot of times you click on it, you'll hear that low end kick in a little bit more or whatever. But I would say the biggest tip, like something that he did that I was just like, man, I would have never even thought about that, was checking for phase and polarity after you've been mixing a while. I always think of it as in the recording stage, but like we were kind of working on something and he did some EQ moves and stuff. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to check phase on these now. And sure enough, he'd lost a little low end or something on something. He flipped polarity and there it was again. And I was like, duh, part of me was duh. And part of me was like, wow, that he, is conscious enough because, as every time you do an EQ move, you're messing with phase unless you're using a linear phase EQ, which, sometimes I do, the Fab filter has that ability, but if not, you're messing with phase and it pays after you've done a few EQ moves in your mix, go back and recheck your phase.
Yeah, so, that's great. What a great tip, man. That's a good reminder and it's a good reminder that the reason we're checking the phase again in the mix isn't necessarily that we missed it earlier. It's that the phase might be different now between the phase relationships.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with missing it. Yeah, it changes.
Yeah, even compression is just bringing certain frequencies to the foreground and stuff.
Yep.
How about a favorite hardware tool? Something that's fun to use in the studio.
Well, I love microphones, man. I'm kind of a, even though I don't own a bunch of vintage microphones or anything, like some guitar players collect pedals. I mean, I am kind of a snare collector. I've got that problem too. But as far as the hardware, the gear, what excites me is microphones. And like I mentioned, the new Loughton Tom mics, I'm loving those. I just got.
And you said the Royer, what were they? R10s.
The R10s, and then the 121, of course. I always use that on. I do the typical 57 121 on the on guitar cabs.
Yeah.
But then I blend those. I use that Radial mix 2-to-1 box that Radial sells, and so I always have both the guitars coming into that, and then sum those down to one channel and just one pre. So that you have to commit to your guitar tone, and it's got the 2 dial. So I'm like, well, I depend on my guitar players really to get the tone that they want, unless they're like totally lost. But I just show them, okay, now this dial here, that's the ribbon mic, that's the Royer, and this dial over here is the 57, and they can hear the difference. And I'm like, now you just mess with those two until you like what you're hearing coming out of the monitors. Yeah,
that's smart.
And and then I'm like, we're committing to that. That's what we're going with. So.
I think that's great because, as a guitar player myself, I used to bring up multiple mics through the MCI console that I had, and I just adjust the faders until I had a tone that I liked.
Same thing,
as I was playing, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah, yep.
It's a great way to do it. Now, how about a favorite software tool, something in the computer that you enjoy a lot for recording?
Like plugins and stuff, I guess, or...
Your call, man. Your call. So as long as it's software and not hardware.
Yeah. I just obviously after I had the very first. I can't remember what the is it Isotope? Is it like Elements or whatever? Kind of like the RX whatever the entry level one is. I had that. I used it a couple times, like on a guitar track, to help with some of the clickiness and stuff. But I hadn't dove into any of the spectral analyzers or anything. And then, of course, Larry's the guru. And then after I spent the day with him, I think literally the next day when I got home, I upgraded to the professional mode of RX and started messing with the spectral stuff. And that's pretty cool, but that's a whole nother thing, huh?
So that you can see it on the screen and you can see what's what you're dealing with.
He was, really showing me how he cleans up vocals and that tool is so powerful for everything, and just the plugins on it are great. They work fine, but if one of them's not quite getting you there, you can go into that spectral analyzer and you can pinpoint and get done exactly what you're going for. Yeah.
Yeah. I've used it recently for just going in and like manually de-essing certain words and certain lines, just to go in there and find the S's. And instead of just de-essing the whole thing, I could go and find certain frequency ranges that maybe had a, harshness in the mid and just sort of tone those down, but leave the tops of the S's alone.
Yeah.
If I wanted stuff like that. And then recently, the other one that I started using it for, which surprised me, was I'm now just using it. Like, let's say I have a WAV file. Let's say I have the WAV file of your vocal recording or something, your mic. And I think, oh, I want to clean this up before I mix it in the video. I'll just pop that open right in RX11 and edit right in there, do cleanup stuff. Or there's even a thing where sometimes the file's too long and I need to split it into 2 files.
Yeah.
And I use RX for that now too. I just open it up, select to halfway, and then I say export that wave, and then just grab the selector and kind of like keep the middle exactly where it was so that it's the same starting point, and just like kind of move the selection over to the end of the recording and hit export again. And now I've just like perfectly split it into 2 files. And it's like, it opens so fast. It's like way faster than me trying to open that and do it in Pro Tools and have to make a dedicated session with a dedicated folder and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's really handy for stuff like that too, just like file management and conversion. If you just want to convert a wave to an MP3 or to an OGG or to whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, groovy, Toby. So I want to ask you this question. This one is our hypothetical question. I love to ask this of all the guests. We could take the Wayback Studio machine and you go back in time and you find young Toby with the long hair and the VW bus. And you say, put down that surfboard for a minute. I got something to tell you. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice would you love to go back and give yourself if you could?
Man, if I went back that far to, young drumming Toby, even if it didn't have anything to do with engineering, just drumming and music, I probably would have told myself to just have more confidence and go for it. And think, like I always knew that's what I wanted to do, but I also was brought up, very pragmatically and, like you need to have a job and, I'm from North Dakota, we work.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like cold winter country too.
Yeah,
it's like if you're not chopping firewood, you're not going to be here next year.
Yeah. 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 You don't hear about rock stars coming from North Dakota, so, part of it was just reality. So yeah, if I could go back, I'd say, you know what, screw that, go for it, move, do whatever you got to do. Whether it would be engineering or playing the drums, I would probably go back and just tell myself, and don't be afraid of what other people think and making mistakes and all those things that help us learn, and just give yourself some confidence and I just tell myself to go for it. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Well, man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed it. And what an amazing story too about fighting for your studio and for your right to be able to make records. So I love it. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
For yourself and for all of us, man, and for sharing this story with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for fighting the fight for us. And thank you for inviting me on the show. It was an honor, Lidge, because you've interviewed the greatest. So
thanks, man. Well, now I've interviewed you as well. So that's awesome. You're on the list. Toby, let the rock stars know, where can they come connect with you? Where can they follow you? You've got a beautiful website and your studio is like a total gem. When I zoom out and look at the map, I mean, it's like, it's Nevada. I mean, it's like, on one end you got Sacramento, I think, on another direction is Reno. If you go south, it's Las Vegas, but you're like a real resource right there in the middle of a lot of driving.
I've had bands come from the Bay Area, two different bands. So, they're willing to do it. So yeah, I'm here, but I'm easy to get a hold of. It's all Tinroof Recording. Tinroofrecording.com is the website. Email is tinroofrecording@gmail.com. Instagram, same thing, Tinroof Recording. If you go to Instagram @Tinroof Recording, you can message me on Instagram. The website has a contact page. You can get a hold of me that way, or just the Gmail. But it's all just Tinroof Recording. Yeah, all one word.
And then I don't want to overcommit you to the state of things now. But Rockstars, looking at the website, I will just say that the your rates, Toby, are really affordable and welcoming, man. Like any band would just be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So
I will say, when a band,
thank you for that.
if a band just comes out here, they usually book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Once they get here, they're like, okay, like, but I think, just initially they're like, oh, it's Fallon. Like, there's nothing out there, but yeah.
But that's the beauty. That's where you want to make records. You want to be like, I just want to be like, because when you get out in the desert, my experience is more along the lines of, being in Vegas, although that doesn't count because it's like Disney World, but being in Joshua Tree, for example,
sure.
When you get out of the city and you're in the desert, like everything just goes,
yeah.
You just kind of relax a little bit,
Yeah, you can totally relax here. Yep. You can crash here. I've had bands crash here in the studio and yep. Come check it out.
That's great, dude. Rockstars, thank you for hanging with us and enjoying the podcast. Definitely reach out to Toby if you're looking for a place to record out that way. Toby, I think you do remote mixing as well. But also, if you enjoyed this episode and you're listening, come on over to video because we're on YouTube. And if you enjoyed it here and you're on YouTube, hit the like button, please, and subscribe so you get more podcasts from us. More interviews are coming, lots more. And, drop a comment in and let us know what really excited you about it. Or, even if you've been dealing with, the city and complaints and you got somebody pushing back against your studio, if you need help, reach out to us.
Yeah.
We're always glad to help fight the good fight. Toby, thanks for hanging with us, man. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to meeting you in person, dude.
Thank you. Thank you, Lidge. Appreciate you, bud.
You rock, dude. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our fantastic sponsors who make this episode possible. Isotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, Grace Design, and Picker. Check out the Spectra 1964 website for factory direct budget-saving prices on the STX 600, 100, 100D, and BBDI DirectBox. Check out my studio profile on the Picker app on iPhone or Android, and remember to take advantage of our special coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase at isotope.com or nativeinstruments.com. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes below. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because it's a great way to help support this show. And I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko and Daria Tupesis. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.